I'm not as sure as of an object being able to bring the history, because it's sort of like I look at the drums as these things to be excited, like the membranes, right? And when they're done vibrating, then not that they're done, but somebody, and also it's kind of, I feel like our job as drummers that when we get behind the kit, take that kit over. Like William Hooker is going to be William Hooker on that. It has nothing to do with anything that I put in. I mean, I try to do the best I could that I can, but that's, I can't imagine that anything I would do on it would, especially if you told him that I had played, he might be like, who? And then just do what he did. But even if you didn't tell him at all, I can't even, it's too hard for me to imagine,
I have will. And because I have will and I'm imposing my will on it, maybe its understanding of me isn't as aggressive as I am toward it. And so because of that, maybe a lot of times I'm misinterpreting the message it's giving me back because of my own strong will. I will say that I'm open to the possibility that what you're saying is really true. And you've opened up something for me that I think I'm going to definitely have to include in my vocabulary. I think I'm ready to have that conversation about if the drums are playing me as well. Because I don't think I've ever been ready before this day talking to you about being ready for that conversation. Because I never really want, I kind of sensed there's something about me that doesn't want to play drums in that way, in a receiving way. Because it takes a lot of humility, I believe. It takes a lot of humility.
There's a dialogue between the drummer and the drum, so like the information being put in to the drum invariably affects the drum's output. So, I mean, on the most basic level, just the physics of that process of like somebody striking it a certain way over time and like this like accumulation of vibration. I mean, vibration isn't this ethereal thing. Like it's matter. It's a physical thing. So when you have these waves, they're like wood is only so strong or whatever. Like it's gonna adapt, and there'll be pockets of shapes that hold certain resonance over time, and so that drum is gonna have that. So I think as a drummer, you're like listening for like what the drum wants to do. So you're in a way you're kind of digging and finding those pockets and those resonances.
In my case, a lot of times it has to do with things breaking. So if a stick breaks, if it gets a crack, then suddenly everything sounds totally different. Or I'm playing with one stick and I accidentally drop it. I'm too sweaty, and then I got to grab another one that feels totally different, and it makes a completely different sound to my ears on everything. And that constant, almost breathless adjustment that's happening between the drums and the muscles. I mean, so much so that it feels like the instrument is playing me. There's a certain violence to it, both directions, where I'm hitting something, I'm punching it, I'm pounding on it, and right back, it's biting me right back in the ear because it's so loud.
Yeah, a lot of it is actually couched in my head in terms of like slight worry of like my physical relationship to the drums playing me is like, am I going to do something where they're going to play back at me and give me carpal tunnel? Am I going to do something with the cymbal where it's going to crack and I'm going to have to... So it's like, you want to push it as hard as you can to where you don't ruin everything all the time, because, well, some things are disposable, but I don't like thinking that way too much,
I think it's like discovering a relationship. It's not really... Yeah, it's actually, for me, I don't have the feeling that it starts to react in a specific way or that I start to play it in a specific way, but it's more this kind of, discovering a relation between me and the object, because it's behaving in a certain way, and it's like this ping pong effect. And I think our memory together makes the special, the way we treat each other in the end. So I know a little bit like what it's gonna do, and it knows a little bit what I'm gonna do, and then we get there together in a way.
Every time you play a drum, it changes the molecule structure and everything, and it breathes different. So the next time you play it from the last time is going to erase this and be new, kind of a restructuring of all the stuff that's going on inside the fabric of the shell. It's like a governor because of where it's putting back to you what you've put into it, and because of it's doing that, you're putting the same thing back into it, and so it's, it keeps it kind of like, so if you want to make it different, you got to make it different physically. It's not going to, the drum won't take you some different place because it erases what was just done.
I know I'm sensitive to contrasts, and I'm sensitive to the tools that I have to create audible contrast and what will come from it. But I'm just going to be more open now to it playing me. That's something that I have to really seriously think about.
The tools do tell you what you're to do, what you're playing. And they do write the piece for you, whether you like it or not. And even when I'm in the quietest, darkest room thinking of abstract drum beats, the sounds that are in my mind's ear come from all the drums that I hear, especially the ones that I'm playing, or have just gotten to the hotel from playing, if I'm on tour, and I hear those sounds are still ringing in my mind.
Yeah, a lot of my tools or my material are very specific to the drum, and so I'll keep a drum head for 2 or 3 years, because over time it's both, it gets a better preparation, like it has more rosin, there's less, the substance becomes less of the plastic material on the head and becomes more like the oil of my hand or the rosin, so it creates a more of a sensitive membrane.
I'm really interested in my drum set, and that gets back to that consciousness question. I'm really interested in the feelings of my own drum set. So I must think something's there. And if my drums weren't included in it, I'll look over there and I'll see them, and I kind of feel bad, because I know that they would have been even better. But is that me putting myself on this, or but I know that they would feel much better, but because I know them.
I know that I'm not playing certain things when they don't sound like I want them to sound. So if, for example, I want to play a hip-hop beat and I have a bass drum that is in a jazz tuning, then I just can't play it either, or I have to play it without the bass drum, finding the bass drum sound somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a feedback where you're teaching it, it's teaching you, but then also it could do all these different things at any moment, so you can't have to constantly be listening and aware.
Another thing I love to do on the drums is something that resembles speaking. And of course there are tonal languages on this earth, Chinese being the most famous one, but there are some in Africa. And I've heard recordings of people playing 3-toned drums, speaking, and they're sending a message to the next village. Somebody just was born, and they're saying it on a 3-tone slit drum. And there's something, whereas a violin, maybe the stereotype of it is that it's a kind of singing, an imitation of singing. There's something about drums I always feel when I'm playing that seems like an imitation of human speech. And I often feel that when I'm playing is that I'm trying to speak.
Improvising is just reacting and acting and reacting really fast, all these little decisions that keep getting made and piling up on each other, and you're maybe trying to also keep some connection to an overarching structure, so it's not just super, no focus, no attention span thing.
That's the way I play and listen. It's really me asking and questioning myself and then answering back. And that doesn't happen necessarily right on time. It happens when it is time, when the answer reveals itself. So I don't ponder it, and I keep playing, which brings more melodies on top. It's like layers. You're layering. But out of all that layering, come musical statements that I really attribute to color. That's how I'm listening.
I'm not thinking of time at all when I'm playing a solo. It's more like shapes and colors in a sense, but it's also, I like to think of it as impact, like a rock in the water kind of thing.
As a solo, I'm really listening for the instability or the thing that's a little unknown or like unstable. And I think in an ensemble, especially like a duo or a trio, you can insert a really known material, but its place or its relation to things or its what it causes or elicits could be the thing that's actually unstable. But as a solo, it's just me. So I'm basically talking to myself, and it's just like, where is the instability?
One very important parameter is the space where you're playing in. So this affects me very much in my playing, because it's especially for drums, I think. It makes such a difference because I'm working a lot also on duration of sounds and try to check out where are the short sounds, the longer sounds, the broader sounds, thin sounds, and this changes a lot when you go to a very dry space or a church. So this is probably even more playing on what I'm playing than the instrument itself. Like, it's like a partner, actually, I would say.